Welcome into One of One Sports, the only one for your original sports commentary and analysis. I'm John Barry, and today we're going to be giving you my way too early top 25 for the 2026 season of college football. Let's get into it. All right, before we get started, couple notes. First thing, if you enjoy college football content or sports content in general, consider leaving a like and subscribing to help support and grow the channel. And second thing, I know it's been a minute since I uploaded, but we are back. The national championships tomorrow. We're going to have a bunch of postseason college football stuff coming. And then I've mentioned before, we'll transition into more college basketball, NBA stuff as, the football season dies down. And speaking of college basketball, I got to give a shout out to my Grand Canyon Antelopes, who defeated Utah State, was ranked in the top 25, only our second ranked win in school history. This is what the post-game scene looked like. So that was a lot of fun, and now that that's out of the way, let's jump into the top 25 and my honorable mentions right now. So my honorable mentions from the ACC, we have SMU, Kevin Jennings returning, didn't make the cut. Then from the Big 12, I had ASU and Utah barely missing out. You got a guy like Devon Dampier returning, and then ASU had a really good transfer class, also just missed the cut. And those were my biggest honorable mentions, I would say, from the SEC. Considered a Vanderbilt bringing in a Jared Curtis, and now we can get into 25 through 21. 25, I had Oklahoma State, who's basically importing North Texas, right? Eric Morris coming as head coach, Drew Mestemaker coming as quarterback, Caleb Hawkins at running back, Wyatt Young as receiver, as well as many other transfers. And yeah, Oklahoma State was arguably the worst team in the Power Four last season, but with all this new talent, you have all the pieces of what was the best offense in all of college football last season, albeit playing at the non-Power Four level, but still the American was a good conference. North Texas was very good, very explosive. I expect Oklahoma State to do much the same, and I have them just making the cut at 25. Washington at 24, bit weird here. I think Damon Williams is one of the best quarterbacks returning in all of college football, but obviously the dynamic could be a little strange considering he tried to leave, exit the portal, a little bit of a legal issue, and then after heartfelt talks decided to come back. Like, the locker room dynamic could be weird. You also lost some players to the portal, some key players at wide receiver and at running back, and you also lost Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston to the NFL draft. But Washington has recruited really well, just had a number 13 ranked recruiting class. And yeah, quarterback goes a long way, assuming Damon Williams is going to be playing at a near Heisman-like level, which is kind of what I expect. All right, 23, Louisville. I feel like they just hover around this range every year. Bring in a bunch of transfers again. Instead of Miller Moss, now it's going to be Lincoln Conholes. And he brought in new receivers. And Isaac Brown's back at running back. And just feels like Jeff Brom and Louisville win 8 to 9 games every year and are going to be hovering as a borderline top 25 team. I see no reason to think that changes. 22 is where I have Houston, and then 21 Arizona, a couple Big 12 teams returning their quarterbacks in Connor Wigman and Noah Fafita, and they are coming off of really good seasons where they both won 9 games. A lot of pieces return. Arizona, you don't lose too much. Like, you do lose, it's not like you lose nothing, but you do have a lot of guys returning. It's the same deal for Houston. Your coaches are back, Willie Fritz, Brennan. So the roster, or you should be able to replicate theoretically a lot of what you did last season, which was a top 25 case season for Houston or a top 20 season for Arizona. So I have them in my top 25. All right, 20 through 16. At 20, this is where I have Cal, and this is what I think a team that's going to take one of the biggest leaps in all college football, kind of like Oklahoma State. You have a first-year head coach coming in. You hired Oregon's defensive coordinator. He's now taking over head coach. I really like what they're doing in the portal to surround Jaron Sagapolutele, arguably the best true sophomore quarterback going next season. He's right up there with your guys like your Bryce Underwoods, your Bear Mockfires, your Malik Washington. He has all the talent. I think he's going to be really good. You surround him with good players like Hendricks from Ohio, like Strong from Rutgers on the ends, and then Adam Muhammad coming in at running back from Washington. I think the offense should be really good. You also brought in some good defensive transfers. You have pieces returning, and your head coach is defensive-minded. I think Cal has a chance to be the best team in the ACC next season and is a dark horse for the playoff. I don't think you're going to see them in a lot of people's way too early top 25, but I think clearly for me, they are in. I think they're a dangerous team next season. 19's Penn State. This is kind of like the Oklahoma State one where they imported North Texas. Penn State kind of imported Iowa State. And when you look at these guys, a year older, really experienced roster who's played together, like with this coach, so it's a lot of cohesiveness. Rocco Beck, you trust in the clutch, he could be even better. And look, I think Iowa State was a really good team last year that had some injury bugs that stopped them from maybe living up to this potential. With the healthy roster and another year of development, I think they can be a top 20 team. Hence why I think Penn State can be a top 20 team. And then Tennessee, 18. I think all the talent around the quarterback position is prepared to be like a playoff contender. But you're probably going to be starting a true freshman, Faison Brandon, at quarterback, which I don't love that. And you didn't get any big time transfers out of the portal. But in terms of who you actually have there, like the receivers are good. I like line of scrimmage play, both sides. I think the O-line and D-line can be good. You have good pieces returning, and Josh Heupel has been very successful, especially offensively. But it's just hard to trust a true freshman quarterback in this spot. Then Missouri, I really like the run game, obviously, with Ahmad Hardy returning. Could be the best running back in all of college football. Austin Simmons, I think, was one of the most underrated. Gets out of the portal from Ole Miss. Like, if you watch me at the start of college football season, I had him as like a Heisman contender coming into the year, so I was really big on him. And I think he could have been if he played the full season. Like, Chambliss was great. I think Simmons was really good too. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. And like, coaching matters, right? In college football, Drinkwitz these past few years, Missouri has been at this level of about a borderline top 15 team all these past few years. I think Simmons and Hardy and also Caden Green on the line, like they're the pieces to do it again. Now, the line of scrimmage hurt a little bit, like the Damon Wilson transfer. You don't love that, but I still think they're going to be really good. And then at 16, before we get into the top 15, it's USC. Bring in the #1 recruiting class and Jaden Maeva back at quarterback. Now, you do lose like Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, so you're going to need new top pass catchers to emerge. But Waymon Jordan back at running back, who early in the season before he got hurt was one of the best in the country. Lincoln Riley on offense, you know they're going to be great there. You do lose Danton Lynn, so defense is a question mark, but I would say you have a better chance to be good at defense than you had any of these past years when you have guys like Jakeem Stewart coming in for a sophomore year. And all these things you've been building to improve defensively, you should at least stay level, and you were around this range last year. You should be a decent defense with a great offense under Lincoln Riley and be able to be on the fringes of playoff contention. That's why I have the Trojans at 16. To the top 15, where we have a few, actually 4 teams from this year's playoff and a team I think should have made the playoff in BYU. We'll go through them. Oklahoma, it's pretty simple. John Mateer's returning at quarterback. You have Brent Venables and a lot of defensive pieces returning. Sure, you're going to lose some key pieces like a Mason R. Thomas, but David Stone, going to be one of the best interior linemen. He's back, and it's Brent Venables. You think the defense is going to be very good. John Mateer, full healthy season, heal up with the thumb. The offense should be better, and this was a team that, with a really tough schedule and offensive limitations, won 10 games, made the playoff last year. On paper, they should probably be better this next year. So they come in at 15. Ole Miss, this is the one that has a lot of, like, what do you call it? Why am I forgetting the word? Hold on. Volatility. Sorry for the cut. I, for some reason, couldn't remember the word for that. But yeah, because the whole Trinidad Chambliss situation, like if Chambliss is back, maybe they're up into the top 10. If it's Deuce Knight, that's a bigger unknown. Maybe I have them too high. But you have some really key pieces returning. I mentioned Ahmad Hardy could be the best running back in college football. So could Keywan Lacey. And then on the other side of the ball, Will Echols, one of the best D linemen. You do lose Umani Mellon to the portal, which is unfortunate, but Centarian Perkins is back as well. You lose a guy like Caden Lee, but Deuce Alexander is back. You lose Winston Watkins, but maybe Caleb Cunningham can emerge. And you also right now have the #2 portal class. So there's a lot going on. You have a lot of pieces returning, but you're going to have a lot of new faces. And then not to mention first full year coaching for Pete Golding, which could be a lot different than Lane Kiffin, especially once Charlie Weiss Jr. leaves. So this one is like a huge range. Like I could see coming back to this in the summer or even at the end of next year and be like, yeah, Ole Miss was either should not have been ranked because of all the changes going on, or overestimated that impact and they were still a top 10 team. I could see it going either way. I'm kind of splitting the difference. 13 is where I have BYU. And this one, there's just a lot of returning talent from a team that won 11 games and only lost to Texas Tech on the season. Bachmeier was a true freshman quarterback. You think he'd get better. Roberts is one of the best running backs in the Big 12. He's back. Parker Kingston at receiver. He's going to be back as well. You also return a bunch of key defensive pieces. Jack Kelly at linebacker, maybe the best amongst them. Brought in one of your best portal class, not best portal, one of your best recruiting classes in recent memory, number 21 in the country, which for BYU is really strong. And you've been doing some really solid work in the portal as well. So I expect them to be competing for the Big 12 for a 3rd consecutive year. Then we have a pair of the SEC teams, Kalen DeBoer and Alabama at 12, which for Alabama is really low. For the rest of college football, this is still a great preseason ranking. But like, is it going to be Keelan Russell? Is it going to be Austin Mack? And how good are they going to be? Ty Simpson provided some pretty good quarterback play for Alabama. Either of those guys is going to have a lot to live up to. You're losing Jerry Bernard. You're losing Isaiah Horton. You hope Ryan Williams can be a true #1. No doubt he has the talent, but with the inconsistency he displayed this season, the drop issues at times, and just kind of ghosting at times, don't know that you trust that. So yeah, there's a lot of questions here. Also the fact that you couldn't run the ball all year despite having a good O-line. What are you going to do at running back? You lost Hollywood Smothers. He's flipped his commitment. You have a 5-star freshman coming in. Is that what you're going to rely on? Like, there's a lot of issues here, but it is still Alabama. You still have one of the most talented rosters. You still have 5 stars littered throughout. You still have all the talent, and you have a coach that, despite maybe some disappointment in his first couple of years at Alabama, he still wins a bunch of games. So for Alabama, while it sounds like a lot of problems, it's kind of because it's Alabama. You're poking holes, you're finding the flaws because you're used to them being on top of the sport, and they're not now. Now they're just a really good team in the mix, whereas they used to be Alabama was guaranteed top 5, probably top 3, probably top 1. That's not the case anymore. There's definitely more holes than before, but they're still one of the most talented rosters with one of the best coaches and should compete for playoffs in the coming years, including next year. And then finally, last team before we get into the top 10, Texas A&M. Marcel Reed back at quarterback. He should be really, really good. Mario Craver back at receiver. He's an All-American type candidate. You also have Isaiah Horton transferring in. He's really good. And you have young talent in that position group as well, not to mention Ruben Owens at running back coming back. So the offense should take another step. Defense maybe takes a step back, losing a guy like Cassius Howe, one of the best pass rushers in all of college football. But I trust Mike Elko to know what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. It's no doubt that Texas A&M is going to have really good athletes. It's just a matter of production standpoint. There's nothing proven yet, but I expect players to fill in, even if it's in an aggregate form. And A&M should be right in the mix again, like they were this past year. And I think Elko is one of the best hires made in these recent years. I think he's going to keep A&M on the upward trajectory, and they're going to continue to get better and better. I think we'll see that next year. All right, now we get into the top 10. And at number 10, it's going to be the Miami Hurricanes. This is a team, again, like Ole Miss, with a lot of volatility because I'm kind of assuming Darian Mentz is going to commit there, just enter the portal. It's heavily rumored he's going to go there. If he does it, though, well, that changes things drastically. You have much worse quarterback play, and you could fall way down into like the 20s on this list. But assuming Darian Mentz is going to be there, you have a really good quarterback. Mark Fletcher is back at running back. Malachi Tony is going to be one of the best receivers in the country, you would think. And you have talent littered across the lines of scrimmage, not to mention some really good true freshmen. We're here like Bryce Fitzgerald, OJ Frederick should be back, so secondary should be good. And you're going to be the most talented team in the ACC. You should fully expect to make the playoff again. Maybe not as good as this past year's team that was in the national championship, or maybe won the national championship. We are yet to see. I'm assuming Indiana is going to win. I should cut that. That spoils my prediction. But Miami, you would think, could be in the mix to win the ACC again, be back in the playoff. They have that level of talent. 9 is Michigan, who I think in Kyle Whittingham's first year has a really, really stacked roster. And if Bryce Underwood can develop and be close to the player he's supposed to be as this number 1 recruit, almost perfect recruiting ranking coming out of school, and be one of the top quarterbacks of the Big Ten, then everything else is there. Like, you returned a bunch of the line of scrimmage play on the O-line. You have, yes, Justice Haynes left, but Jordan Marshall back. You bring in the number one running back recruit in Savion Hyder, so the run game should be there. And you have maybe the best weapons you've had in a little while. Andrew Marsh was an All-American, or true freshman All-American, as in on the freshman All-American team is what I'm trying to say there. But he should be able to be a number 1. You bring in Utah's tight end, who was a freshman. He had over 400 yards receiving. He's going to be a good weapon on the outside. In the transfer portal, you've also brought in Jamie French, who didn't play a lot as a freshman at Texas, but was really highly recruited, a higher rated recruit than Andrew Marsh, who produced very well. And you just brought in, I forget his name, but he was the guy, he was a kid, freshman, committed to Utah. Let me just search his name real quick. Alisi Moa. He could play DB, he could be a receiver, but he was really highly recruited kid, committed to Utah, but is now transferred to Michigan, hasn't played college football yet. And then in the portal, like, we look at it, they're doing a really good job, mostly taking kids out of Utah. John Henry Daly on the edge is going to be a guy for them. He was an All-American, and you brought in the top-ranked pass rusher in Carter Meadows, who can play alongside him. Could be an impact transfer. And then a lot of other Utah players as well. I mentioned J.J. Buchanan, but you also bring in Smith Snowden, who is an all-Big 12 type player. There's a lot of guys they're bringing in the portal that supplement this roster, not to mention a guy like Rod Moore coming back at safety. Zeke Berry should be back. There's talent all over this roster, and if Bryce Underwood is the guy that I think he can be, Michigan should be a top 10 team in the country next year. They were one of the youngest teams last year. We're still top 25. It's only natural they should progress, and I also think coaching got better going from Moore to Whittingham. I really think they're going to be really good next year. I'm also rooting for that as a Michigan fan. 8, I have Texas Tech. You brought in Brendan Sorsby, who I think is an improvement over Baron Morton. The receivers should be good, maybe not great, but they should be good. And then you're once again spending big money in the portal and now in recruiting. Brought in 5-star O lineman and edge rusher in Guyton and Oho. And then I think I said I'm reversing. It's Oho's the O lineman, Guyton's the edge rusher. And then your running backs are back as well. You have maybe the best tight end coming back in Terrence Carter. Line of scrimmage, Adam Trick, and then the Wake Forest guy I brought in. I can't pronounce his name yet, but I will learn. Gonna help to, and AJ Holmes returns as well in the interior. Austin Romaine replacing Jacob Rodriguez, and then Bryce Pollock, one of the best corners, returning. The defense should again be great. Maybe it's not the best in the country like it was this past year with guys like Bailey and Height and Lee Hunter and Gil Howard all exiting. Jacob Rodriguez, I didn't even mention best defense player in the country, but it should still be really good again. Probably still going to bring in more portal talent as they're willing to spend big money, and they should once again have the most talented roster in the Big 12. Should it be expected to win the conference again and be back in the college football playoff? So yeah, they come in at number 8. 7 is LSU and Lane Kiffin. And now I have been publicly skeptical about this hire, and I said twice or 2 or 3 times actually, I think Lane Kiffin will look back in a few years, like 5 years from now, and realize his best chance to ever win a title was this season with Ole Miss. But I think next year's LSU team should be really good. I think Levitt's a good quarterback, and Lane Kiffin seems to do well with any quarterback, and he has Weiss coming in. So with that system, I expect Levitt to play well, and he's going to have weapons. Trey Brown III from Old Dominion, Eugene Wilson, Jace Brown from Kansas State, and Winston Watkins from Ole Miss. So you brought in really good wide receiver weapons to supplement him. Caden Durham back at running back. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you also guys. Whit Weeks is going to be back. DJ Pickett was one of the best true freshman cornerbacks. He's going to be there. You brought in a Ty Benefield from Boise State and a Jordan Ross, who's a talented edge from Tennessee. Not to mention you recruited the #1 player in the country by some accounts, Lamar Brown, on the D-line. So yes, LSU should expect in Lane Kiffin's first year to make the college football playoff. And then number 6, Kirby Smart in Georgia. It's pretty simple. You have Kirby Smart, you're going to be a top 10 team in all likelihood with the way he recruits. Maybe they're not the talented roster they used to be. They're still one of the best in the sport with some really good young talent. Elijah Griffin comes to mind. Gunnar Stockton returns at quarterback. Nate Frazier back at running back. You don't lose all the guys like Robinson and Bolden should be back. You don't lose as much talent as you usually do see Georgia lose. Like CJ Allen will be gone, Christian Miller. But for the most part, a lot of these guys were young, come back, and they should be, like I've been saying, a lot of these teams in the mix for playoff contention and be able to try and win what will be a 3rd straight, I believe, SEC championship. Yeah, Georgia's going to be Georgia. To the top 5, we'll go down one at a time. First up, Texas. Sarkisian's going to return Arch Manning at quarterback, who should be really good another year in the system. I'm not ready to say Heisman favorite. I'm not ready to say #1 pick, but really good. You brought in Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown from the portal at running back. You have a good chunk of your O-line coming back who's really talented. Brought in a Wake Forest transfer as well, who I think was all ACC, if I'm remembering correctly, on the O-line. I could be wrong on that, though. And then you brought in Cam Coleman, the #1 receiver transfer, to pair with Ryan Wingo. So the offense should be really strong. And then defensively, you have the best returning edge rusher in Colin Simmons. You portaled in Rasheem Biles at linebacker, and it's Texas. They recruit at an insane level. They have 5 stars like Justice Terry could break out. Like, you could just go through. You never know which of these 5 stars they have lined up is going to be the next star, but they're all over the field for Texas. That's why they come in at number 5. 4 is Indiana, who's been one of the big winners of the transfer portal. Their NIL fund is now pretty insane. Josh Hoover at quarterback, really good player, has to clean up the turnovers a little bit, but you'd have to think at this point what Indiana did with Rourke and now Mendoza, you have to think Hoover's going to be very successful. Turbo Richard I like at running back, and Nick Marsh at receiver is a really good get, as well as Shaz Preston. Now, you're going to lose some key players. Surratt, probably gone. Surratt is gone. Omar Cooper, probably gone. Charlie Becker, we'll wait and see. And then on the O-line, you're going to lose some key players as well. So you are losing a lot of talent. Also, same on the defensive side of the ball. Like outside of Elijah Hardy, a lot of these guys you expect to be gone, like your Farrells, your Moores, your D'Angelo Pons, and then even on lines of scrimmage, like Tyreek Tucker, I think is out of eligibility, I'm pretty sure. So like a lot of these guys are going to be gone, but you've you've done so on the portal recruiting class, not necessarily the best, but with the way they coach, I mean, it's just hard to doubt them at this point, because is the argument going to be they're less talented? Then look at this year's team based on recruiting rankings or any of that. You wouldn't think they have the necessary talent, but they execute to such a high level. I'm done doubting Indiana. I believe him. I Googled him. He does win games. They come in at number 4, just behind Big Ten opponent Ohio State, who it's pretty simple. You return Julian Saint at quarterback, Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, Bo Jackson at running back. The offense is going to be strong. Most of the O-line is back, which, yes, I know it had its weak points in the final 2 games against Indiana and Miami, but it was strong most of the year besides that, and it's young, should improve. So the line of scrimmage play should be better. Julian Sayin should be better. Jeremiah Smith, one of the best wide receivers, if not the best in college football. Brandon Inniss should be back alongside him as well. You have a young guy like Chris Henry as a freshman, could step up. And then on the defensive side of the ball, yes, you're going to lose your Caden Currys, your Caden McDonalds, your Caleb Downs, your Arvell Reese. The defense will take a step back, but recruiting Terry Moore and Earl Little and what's the Hugh Rousseau and James Smith from Alabama, and then Kenyatta Jackson returning, you're going to have some good guys, and the defense will be solid. It just won't be what it was this year, which was arguably the best in the country, and I think it was the best in terms of points per game. Number 2 is Notre Dame. This is, I think, the most talented I've seen Notre Dame be in a long time. CJ Carr, going to be up there with the best quarterbacks, with your Arch Mannings, your Dante Moores, who we'll get to in a second, Julian Sayin, and then the running back game, yes, you're losing Jared Price, Jeremiah Love, but Williams should be a decent replacement. O-line you expect to be great. It's going to be healthier. Anthony Knapp is back. You're going to have Greathouse. You're going to have Pfizer. And then you're bringing in Quincy Porter and Graham from Ohio State, young guys who we know are absurdly talented. The offense is going to be really strong. Defensively, Bryce Young back. Jalen Sneed should be back. Leonard Moore should be back. You also had freshman All-American safety who's going to be back. Not to mention you've absolutely killed it in the portal with guys like Keon Keeley, Shawnee Gray, and Francis Bew on the defensive line. That should be really strong. You brought in Jaden Sanders at corner as well, McKinney at quarter from Colorado. And then look at your recruiting class. You brought in 4 5-star recruits, 1 at corner, 1 at safety, 1 at tight end, and 1 at edge, who could all make an instant impact. This Notre Dame team is absolutely stacked and could be competing for a national title once again under Marcus Freeman. But number 1 has to be, for me, the Oregon Ducks. Dante Moore is going to return. I think he's going to be the Heisman favorite, number 1 pick of the draft favorite. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in college football. That gives you a huge head start, but you also returned a lot of faces elsewhere. Mateo Uyangale could have been a first-round pick back on the line. Amari Washington could have been a first-round pick back on the line. Barrick Alexander back. You also have a lot of talent like Elijah Rushing's just been waiting in the fold. He could step up. At receiver, DeCorian Moore was the number 1 receiver recruit. He was good as freshman, should be better as a sophomore. Evan Stewart's going to be back. Jamari Johnson at tight end is back, and you brought in Andrew Olish. And this before mentioning all the talent Oregon brought in as the number 2 or 3 ranked recruiting class in the country, depending on where you look, only behind a USC and maybe an Alabama. They have a bunch of 5 stars ready to make an impact. They're stacked everywhere. Portal work, they're doing their work as well. Corey Perrick, number 1 safety in the portal from Minnesota. He's replacing Dylan Thieneman. And yeah, their state corners should get better as well. Brandon Finney was already great as true freshman. He's going to be there. Offord steps up as a sophomore. This just may be the most talented team in all of college football with the way they recruit now, both in the regular recruiting, high school recruiting, and portal. And their NIL seems to be unmatched with Phil Knight and Nike backing. And now they're retaining players at a rate we haven't seen. Like, if any other team returned their star quarterback and all their star D linemen and your best linebacker coming back in Tui Oti as well, this is getting ridiculous, the amount of people returning. They should fully expect to be the favorites for the national championship in 2026. That's why they are my preseason, or way too early preseason number 1 for college football. It's the Oregon Ducks. All right, with that being said, that is my full list, 1 to 25 plus some honorable mentions. Make sure to comment who's too high, who's too low, what do you agree with, what do you disagree with, and if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I'll be back all week with shorts covering college football stuff after the national championship, and we should have a video out soon as well reacting to all my preseason predictions, so stay tuned for that, and until then, I'll see you guys next time.